Hello, I'm Paul Briley, and you're listening to Off the Comma. On this podcast, we explore all facets of what it means to feel stuck in life. We talk with people just like us who have found themselves sitting on a comma and not knowing where to go next. We'll unpack the experience, where they felt stuck, what they experienced, and what they learned. My goal is to inspire you by seeing yourself in others and finding possibility for yourself. Let's get into this week's conversation. All right, everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of Off the Comma. I'm actually recording a fair amount ahead of when episodes are going to air. So I'm very fortunate to have this week's guest, who I'm going to introduce in just a moment with us, who is in the land of winter while the rest of the land is experiencing a winter that they have not experienced in a long time. But we're recording in winter for a lovely April springtime air date by the time you're hearing this. But I'm excited to have the conversation. I'm excited to see winter through the window in the background behind Alexandra. And Alexandra, like so many of my guests, is somebody who I've not had an opportunity to meet before. So I'm looking forward to meeting her through our conversation today and learning more about her through her story that she's going to be sharing with us today. And on that note, I am going to stop talking. And Alexandra, I'm going to let you introduce yourself as we do with all of our guests. Why don't you tell us how would you like to be known as a human being, and then whatever you want to share with us.
Perfect. Well, hi. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me on the show. My name is Alexandra Lauren, and that is a very good question. I think I would love to be known as adventurous, kind of like zesty for life,
Ooh.
and yeah, really like optimistic and also non-traditional, maybe testing some of the norms on what is, normal.
Okay, okay. I have to say, I always enjoy the intros because it's always kind of like the preview of what I might learn or what I might discover through your story today. But I think you're the first guest who said zesty, which is very cool. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that shapes itself out in your story today, and all of these adjectives that you've used to describe yourself. Alexandra, by way of introduction, I know you're going to share a whole lot more about yourself through your story. What else would be important for listeners to know about you before we get into the story?
I do think that I think my story will speak for itself, when we
Hmm.
kind of get into it. But yeah, I think those adjectives are that I use to describe myself are very important with how my story is going to unfold.
Okay. All right, good. And then I'll throw this in the mix too. We were getting to know each other a little bit before we started the recording, and one of the things that I just learned about you is RV living, and I too am kind of doing the nomad thing right now in my own weird kind of off the comma kind of way. But anything you wanted to share with folks about where you are or where you're traveling?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I live full time in an RV, and as I said, we'll talk about it through my story how I actually got to this lifestyle because it is very important to my quote unquote comma moment on how I got here. But yeah, I live full time in a fifth wheel, and it's actually huge. So it's like
Mm.
42 feet. So I don't know if you can see the video, but I'm a little lady, so it's very fun to be driving this massive vehicle around the US. I'm having the time of
Nice.
my life.
Nice. I can't wait to hear more about it. With a friend of mine, Angela, who was also on the podcast. I don't remember her episode number right off the top of my head, but we spent a Saturday afternoon going to Camper World in Charlotte, North Carolina, and
Yeah,
walking
that's
through
so
different,
fun.
and I got to walk through like a 40-foot one or whatever. Of course, it was the fully loaded. Like they didn't just bring their home with them. They brought the whole cul-de-sac.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm living in a tiny apartment on wheels.
Nice. Nice. What a great way to live. Okay, I'm distracting you though. So let's get into you and your story. Give you an opportunity to get into as much detail as you want. We're going to start the 5 questions here in just a moment. But before we do, one thing I do with every single guest is let's focus on you. As you think ahead to the next 35, 40 minutes or so of sharing your story with us, what would be your intention for yourself today?
Ooh, I love this question. I think my intention is that I obviously went through kind of a rough time being stuck, quote unquote. So
Mhm.
it's really nice for me to share my story and, as I said, just be authentic to myself and be that zesty, person that we're talking
Mm,
about. Yeah, so it's really nice for me because kind of by telling my story, I realize how far I've come.
I love that, and it's so funny. I get funny in a good way. Like I get so many different kinds of answers to the question, and they're all amazing because everybody gets to decide for themselves. And sometimes it's about inspiring others, and a lot of times people underestimate the value of what just retelling the story in an intentional way can actually do for you. And that's what I'm hearing from you is like you might get something out of the telling of the story in addition to anybody else getting something out of it.
Yeah, because it's so easy to get caught up, in just life
Mhm.
and everything. But then you retell a story and you're like, man, oh my gosh, what a journey this has been.
For sure, for sure. So, my intention, as I write myself a little keyword down here, my intention for you today, Alexandra, or for myself, is to support you in your intention. Obviously, create the space for you to be able to share your story with us. But that, as with every episode, there will be people out there who hear your story. They see a little bit of themselves in you and your story. They'll feel a little bit more connected, a little bit less alone, and in the best of cases, maybe even feel empowered or inspired to go out and do something that they've been wanting to do or secretly been wanting to do. Well, let's jump in then. So, Alexandra, question one. Where in your life have you found yourself sitting on a comma?
Oh, okay, let's get started. So, growing up, and I think maybe a lot of listeners will resonate with this, I was a goody two shoes overachiever. And in
Mm,
school, I was just held to a crazy standard. I mean, I got the perfect grades. Everyone was like, you have such a bright future. I was top of my class. And, I think that just really put a lot of pressure on me, just as a
hmm
human. Like, I'm just a girl, but it just put a lot of pressure on me. So, as I started, figuring out who I was and this world around me and what I should be doing in my place in the world, I did hold myself to a very high standard. I was very ambitious. I wanted to achieve something great. So
hmm
I think it was, yeah, I held myself, to that level of perfection.
hmm
So as I started going through college, I actually I had a different side to me that I didn't let a lot of people see, and that was the zesty side.
mm
The side that loved to travel, that loved to explore, that loved to inspire, that loved to, do all these things. And I really shoved that part of me down because,
hmm
according to society, that's not productive and that's not, getting a good career and a good paying career. So I really shoved that part of me down, even though that's the part that I really love.
mm
Yeah, so
mm
I tried to do it a little bit. I was like, okay, I'm going to compromise. So I actually ended up going to, I moved when I was 18 to England, and I went to
Oh,
college full time overseas. And that really did calm that like adventurous side of me for a little bit. I could still get a good degree and I could still focus on my school and my studies, but, and, I could kind of tame that explorer side of me. And then after that, I decided, I was like, hey, the best course for me would be medical school.
mm
I was like, I'm going to get a big girl job. I'm going to go to school, going to take out all those student loans. Like, and everyone was like, yep, that's how you're going to do it. And I actually was a first responder during COVID, and
okay.
I saw some pretty horrific things. My degree was in forensic science.
Mm.
So I was on the front lines and I saw pretty much the worst of humanity there.
Wow. Well, part of me wants to ask a question there, but continue with your story because I might take you kind of down a rabbit hole that isn't necessarily important to the theme of your story. But what I am hearing you say, if I can just kind of reflect a couple
Oh
of
yeah,
things real
of
quick,
course.
buy you a moment to breathe while you continue. Um, so I hear this like obviously this duality, this conflict between different parts of you, right? You were very clear about that. There's the part that's kind of like the achiever and the meets everybody else's expectations, and as I reflect, by all means, correct me wherever I misstate something, because it's just kind of what I believe I heard. So, the achiever and the person who's kind of performing to other people's expectations, while meanwhile, there's the things that you want for yourself that you're not really accessing or achieving or enjoying. then you kind of do, right? You go off to England. I see your baby there. That's
Yeah, my
awesome.
my
I
cats.
love it. I love it. And that's only cats will do that, right? Like,
Oh yeah,
who the hell are you talking to, right?
always on the computer.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. I'm leaving that in there too. We're not even going to edit that out. That's awesome.
Please do. His name is
Um,
Mo. We'll talk about him.
awesome. Okay, cool. Hello, Mo. So you have this opportunity to then go and kind of walk in the zesty side, and yet the responsibility element is what gave you the permission, right? You kind of layered them there, which is in a way kind of powerful, right? Because there's some permission and empowerment there. And then back into the responsible other people's expectations. Let me go the mainstream route, the medical school. And then, of course, that took you into a place where you saw some things that were pretty, as you said, horrific. So, okay. I just wanted to reflect for a moment. So, continue. Where do we go next? Because that's through college and the beginning of your career, and yet still you're on a comma, it seems.
Yeah, I just didn't feel like I was being authentic truly to myself. We were talking about that
Mm,
duality where I feel like this is who I should be and this is who I am. And,
mm,
so it's just like an internal struggle. So I was
mm,
still very much who I should be, and I think that's why I was so stuck during this period is, I wasn't really living like myself. And
mm,
I was obviously, COVID was a rough time for a lot of people, myself included. But a lot of things, like my authentic self would show occasionally. So some things that I would ask my patients is, while we were waiting or we were transporting or anything like that, is I would say, what's on your bucket list? What have you done? What is the coolest thing that you have done? Inspire me. And a lot of people, it just really broke my heart because a lot of people just didn't,
mm.
and I thought to myself, silently, I kind of judged them a little bit. I was like, how could you let your life slip away? Like, that's crazy.
Oh, wow.
And then I realized I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing the same thing. I'm not living like who I am, I'm not traveling. I'm not doing anything that's on my bucket list. So, but I was like, no, that's not how the world works. Gotta go get a big girl job. It's fine. So I did get into
Mhm.
medical school. And again, I was like, okay, I'm going to try to calm some of that, some of my other side. And I actually went to Budapest, Hungary for medical
Mm.
school. So that was super fun. As I said, I just love to explore and see new cultures. That's like my passion. And during medical school, that was probably the peak of my comma
Mm.
because I just couldn't do anything. I mean, I just had zero time for hobbies, for interests, for relationships, for connection, for traveling, for literally anything. And I just have so much respect for people who do go down that path, because they do have a calling. And I just kind of sat there and I was like, man, I just don't know if this is my calling.
Mhm.
Um,
Mm.
yeah, so
Let,
it was hard.
let me jump in for a moment. So, I mean, I think a lot of us can relate to this. What I'm curious about for you is like, what were you? I mean, you pretty clear about what the two different parts were that were kind of competing with each other. The zesty side, which sounds like a lot of that is around travel and adventure and exploration, right? And then the kind of the big girl job, as you said, and the training and the education to get to the big girl job. What were you feeling and thinking? Like, what was the pressure between the two that said you really couldn't or shouldn't have the one and should do the other?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And when I say that I'm adventurous and zesty, I mean to the like the fullest extent.
Mm,
Like I take it a little hardcore. Like I'm like jumping off of cliffs and
mm,
going solo hiking like 20 miles, so like
okay.
I really just love that kind of thing. And I think that there maybe is a version of myself that could have had both, but it's just hard because when I was in that situation, so many things were uncertain. And I was
Hmm.
like, I don't even know. Like, I felt like I had to prioritize one or the other.
Hmm.
And obviously, I was getting immense pressure to do the medical school route.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was brutal. The school that I was at was known for being particularly brutal on people. And yeah, the dropout rate is crazy. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was just my whole life. And I thought to myself, I was like, oh, I can time prioritize. Like I can go hiking on the weekend. No. Oh my gosh, like my
Yeah.
entire life was just studying the human body.
Okay. So like one versus the other was expectations, right? External expectations. But yet, I think I also heard something in there, which is even if you chose the thing that others expected of you, you still kind of went all in. Like you went to the hardest place. You didn't have, you like immersed yourself in it where you couldn't do anything else. Like it seems like that kind of extreme thread in you
Hmm.
still showed up no matter where you went or no matter how happy you were about where you were going.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I still had to go all in no matter
Yeah.
what it was, the hardest school, the hard, so yeah, you're totally right. I think
Yeah.
that part of me still showed up even in the perfectionist overachiever side.
Yeah. Okay. So I kind of jumped in. You said, and that's about where my comma peaked at medical school. And you said, because I wasn't doing any of the things that I wanted to do. Then what?
Yeah, then and I think I pigeonholed myself because I said, oh yeah, I said I suppressed that side of me and I was like, that's not how the world works. That's not, I got to be realistic. I got to, build a future. I got to have a 401k. I got, and all that stuff.
Hmm.
And I I kind of had this realization where I was like, "Oh my gosh, I am exactly like my patients." Like I'm just going to let my life slip away and I'm going to blink. I saw this thing and it was like, oh, I'll be happy once I get into med school. Oh no, 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 I'll be happy once I reach residency. Oh, I'll be happy once residency is over. Oh, okay,
Mm,
I'll be happy once I place. Oh, I'll be happy once I get that promotion. And then you're sick or something happens to your body, you age, and you just like forgot to live. So I had this
hmm.
realization, and that again was my peak comma point where I was like, man, I'm stuck. I'm
Mm.
super stuck, and I
I can,
don't know how to get out of it.
yeah. Well, and I can so relate to the I'll be happy when, I'll be happy when. And then I apologize for self-referencing, but the thing that kind of motivated me to live the weirdo way that I'm living right now was just simply, I'm 55 right now, and it's like most people wait until they're 65, 70 when they've retired to do those things. And I'm like, pardon my French, but fuck that shit. Like,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I want to do this stuff while I can walk, while I can climb, while I can like tolerate things being uncomfortable and
Hmm.
making decisions and so forth. And so I'm just wondering kind of, and I'll ask the questions in a moment, but I'm wondering if that's kind of like where you're going.
Yeah, that's totally where, and that's what my patients said too. They were like, "Oh, I told myself, I would do all these things that I wanted to do, once I found a partner, once I had kids, once I was financially stable, but then you go and everyone's knees go bad and
Hmm.
and it's as I said, you do get sick. So that was a very common theme that
Hmm.
I found when I was asking people these questions. And I took a good look at my life and I said, yeah, I'm going to be in a very prestigious position. I'm, going to be helping people and all that stuff, but at what cost? Like I kind of felt like I
Yeah.
had to sell my soul in order to do it.
I'm going to get to the second of the five questions here in just a second, and you'll be able to build on it. But what I'm curious about is during all of this period that you've been describing, what were you secretly wishing you could do? What was the fantasy?
I think I just never gave myself permission to think like that.
Oh, okay.
I was just like, this is how it is. But then once I kind of hit that point where I was like, hey, I always say I wanted to help people live, not survive. And in
Mm,
the path that I was going down, I was going to help them survive, which I think is a noble thing to do, but I just don't think it was what I was called to do. So once I kind of took a step back and I was like, hey, I'm stuck. This is not good. I don't think this is my true calling or reason. I actually gave myself permission to finally be like, hey, this is the life that I want. I want to be
hmm.
adventurous. I want to travel. I want to inspire people. I want to help people live. How can I build instead a career around that instead of going down the mainstream route? And
Hmm.
finally, and I started researching and I was like, oh my gosh, this is totally possible.
Mm. Okay.
Never knew.
Okay, so let me throw in the second question. Continue, like I said before, continue the story, take us where you want to with it, go backwards if you need to. It's not a go to the next place, just expand. The second question is, as you look back at this comma that you were sitting on, what did it create for you? And I feel like you've already started talking about that.
Yeah, so let's just get into it. So I did the unthinkable. You know, as I said, I was in a very good position, as you could, as society says. I was like, oh yeah, I'm like really killing it right now. I
Mm-hmm.
quit all of it.
Mm.
I was like, to get off the comma, you gotta really get off the comma. So yeah, I quit. I moved back. I sold literally everything I owned, and I bought a fifth wheel.
Mm.
And I've been traveling and just like trying to inspire other people and like creating art and like all these different things that I never knew was possible. And I've just been kind of going with the flow of life and just kind of seeing where it takes me instead of having everything all laid out for me. And
Mm-hmm.
it's so freeing. Like it's just so relieving and freeing. And finally, I feel like I'm authentically myself now, and I don't have to choose between something that everybody wants versus something that I just naturally am.
Yeah. Okay. A couple of questions. So, and I would assume, selfishly from my own experiences, like it's not without its challenges and its problems and things
Oh,
like that.
oh yeah.
But, and I'll certainly encourage you to speak on that. But what, this is the question that I can already see people asking is, how did you decide? How did you decide to do something that extreme? And what was that like for you? I sold everything. I quit everything. I sold everything. People are like, how in the hell do you do that? Especially today, in today's world, where I
Yeah.
think a lot of people really want to unplug from this whole fucking thing that's going on.
Hmm.
How did you do it?
I think like a perspective that kind of changed mine was I was like, okay, I can either make my life happen or I can let life happen to me.
Hmm.
And that perspective where I was like, wow, I'm really going down a road where, it's easy. And I think it's so easy. It's so easy to get caught up and, just live paycheck to paycheck to just focus on bills and just go to work, go to sleep, go to work, go to sleep, have the weekend off, And I think that's
Hmm.
so easy and it's safe. And I don't judge anybody who is doing that because I think that you need to do whatever you need to do. But I think I just came to a crossroads where I was like, man, I say I'm adventurous and brave, so I gotta live up to that name.
Mm.
I was like, and I think that being perfectionistic and achievable, I was like, man, I can do anything I can set my mind to. So if I can literally get into med school and see the hardest things ever, why can't I do this? Both are hard. Life is hard. That's just how it is. But you get to choose your hard, which is why what I
Mm.
think is cool in life. So yeah, med school is hard. So is RV life and making my own business and making my own income, and both are equally just as hard. But I would rather be doing this kind of hard than that kind of hard any day of the week.
Hmm. That theme really comes up so often in these off the comma conversations. And what I love about it is the reinforcing the element of choice. And in my opinion, it doesn't diminish the varying degrees of what choice means in every single person's life. For someone like you, it means I quit everything. I moved myself into an RV and I went kind of extreme according to the social norms. For other people who they have responsibilities, they have a family, and they actually are like satisfied with their choice of choosing a conventional career and the stability of a salary and a paycheck and so forth, but still long for some adventure, right? Like then there's still choices there, like whether it's
Hmm.
switch from reading leadership books to smutty romance books at night,
Right.
or it's, if you're going to go on vacation, then do it in a different way or whatever. Everybody has the element of choice. For you, I'm curious at that point, and I'm totally like doing research here too for myself. At the point that you said, I'm going to quit everything and I'm going to sell everything and do it, here's another question that I think people will be curious about. And by people, I mean me. Was it a fuck it, I'll figure it out, or no, I'm going to do this because I already know where my replacements are, or something in between, or something else.
Yeah, so really quick before I get into that, I think that one of the things that I get a lot is everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, you're like diving out of cliffs and out of planes and traveling," and I'm like, I think adventure is just anything that puts you out of your comfort zone. So
Mm,
even if if you're a mom of 6 kids and you're like, "Man, I can't do that," adventure might be taking an hour for some self-care. Just like being brave and just stepping out of your comfort zone. So,
or
I
speaking your mind in a meeting,
yes,
or
yeah.
actually asking somebody for something that you want, right?
Asking for help or, I think it's definitely it doesn't have to be the extremes. It's
Hmm.
whatever's extreme for you.
Okay.
So anyway, just touching on that point because that just inspired me to say that. But
Yeah.
anyway,
No, I love that. I love that.
so yeah, so your question about kind of how I decided to do that is I, as I said, was naturally kind of, I think people could see that I was very adventurous and
Hmm.
fun. Like after college, I actually circumnavigated for 7 months by myself. And that was even before I like hit med school. So
Mm.
I kind of already had like the people who were like, "Oh, this makes sense for you." Like I told everyone that I was quitting and everyone was like, "Finally." Like
Okay.
finally, you're doing it. So I think that definitely helped.
Hmm.
And also as I said, I was very perfectionistic and overachieving, so I took that side of me and applied it to the adventure. So I was like, no, I'm not just gonna go into this willy nilly. Like I had a business plan, I had like a Q1, Q2 goals, like I had everything all laid out.
Hmm.
So I think I just kind of applied it in a different way that was more
Yeah.
authentic to myself.
Well, and to me, it also demonstrates what you said, which is if I operate under a belief that life is going to give me challenges and life might be hard, then which hard do I choose? Because
Hmm.
I can already see, folks who are like, oh, man, shit, do a business plan and all that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, but that, as I like to call it, right? Like some of the places that I'll stay out on the road or some of the decisions that I make in order to be able to be mobile, I'm like, but that's my ticket, right? Like,
Hmm.
first of all, I'm not spending a lot of time in this room unless, and if I am, I'm working or sleeping. So who cares if it's a fancy hotel or not, right? And that room that a lot of people might not have stayed at or, stayed in that kind of a property gave me access to cities and towns that I would have had to have planned a vacation 6 months out in order to do. So that's what I'm hearing you say. It's like, well, yeah, the business plan that is my freedom.
Yeah, yeah. As I said, it's just choosing your hard. You can be sad about where you are, or you can face the
Hmm.
challenges that come with the new life. Because I'm not
Yeah.
saying in any way, shape, or form that this life that I have chosen is easy. I mean, we
Yeah.
were talking before. My furnace just went out, and it was negative 18 degrees yesterday. So I was bundled up
Mm-hmm.
in like 7 coats. I wouldn't have gotten that in med school, I'll tell you that. But it's all hard. So, but at least I get the freedom to choose.
Hmm. Say a little bit more, because I think a lot of folks will hear your story and say, "Wow, that sounds really glamorous," and there's a fantasy, and it is, right? Because it is for you, because that's what you chose. But
Hmm.
yet, every life experience we choose is going to have an element of fantasy and an element of reality. I've had this conversation with a couple of friends. Like, there's the 20% of the story that you hear that's like, "Oh my God, that's so awesome." And I love that, by the way. And then there's the 80% that's actually 80% of it is kind of like it's just still mundane life and I'm still having to figure out how to eat and do laundry and blah 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 blah.
Hmm.
What are and then we'll get into the next question. What are some of the things that people would be surprised to hear that is normal and difficult and is your version of problems?
Yeah, well, I think obviously the biggest one that probably most people are going to have, questions about is the income.
Hmm.
It's hard and it takes like a seriously thick skin and literally no ego because I've tried things, I put my heart into things and they just don't work. I've tried to, make money certain ways, make money other ways. Like it's really a creative thing to try,
Mm-hmm.
to make money. It's a lot of income streams, which means it's not super stable. And I've learned to live with that. And, sometimes I get like kind of a rush from it. Like I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have to eat ramen, but at least I'm climbing mountains,
Mm-hmm.
and, so that's just something that I sacrificed, the stable living paycheck. Yeah, it's just something that I have chosen to live with, but it's definitely stressful a lot of the time. So there's that aspect, and then there's also the physical aspect of it. I don't know how much you want me to get into this, but it's hard running an RV.
I would imagine, yeah. Whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you think would be valuable to your story.
Well, actually, we were talking about, like choosing your heart, and I was like, well, sometimes like I have to dump my own sewer, which is not glamorous at
Hmm.
all. And I was like, so sometimes I'm just, like covered in poop. But I thought to myself, man, I would have been covered in poop in a hospital too. So there you go.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Do you think that there is a now? I want to acknowledge right up front this whole line of questioning that I'm about to share is truly about RV living, nomad life, that sort of thing. Do you think that there's potentially even an element of the way you live now that I don't want to be like doomsday-ish. No, I don't want to go that path, but like that prepares you for, a life where if you had to make difficult choices or if you had to live on less and that sort of thing, in some ways, I mean, you're learning valuable skills and valuable survival skills in case you did choose to live a rustic life from now on, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's actually so many things where it's actually very empowering, especially like as a woman. Like things that I never thought I would be able to do. Obviously my furnace is broken, but this isn't the first time I've had issues with my furnace, and I like full on troubleshooted this furnace. And I was like,
Mm,
I would have never thought that I would be troubleshooting a furnace, or,
mm-hmm.
just things that, with moving, and if it just like survival things, like
Mm-hmm.
you were saying, like how to protect pipes from freezing. Like it takes home ownership to a whole new level. Like I am responsible for
Yeah.
this entire thing, and even just driving.
Mm-hmm.
There was a story that I was actually going from. I was in a ghost town up in Saint. It was called Saint Elmo, kind of near Buena Vista, and I was
Mm.
driving back. I took some photos. Most of my thing is by photography, and so I took some photos. I was coming back, and I was like, "Man, that smoke! It's getting a little close, isn't it?"
Mm-hmm.
And I came back. It was literally right there. We were all getting evacuated. Like I could feel it in my lungs, and I packed up this entire thing within 20 minutes and evacuated.
Yeah.
So yeah, just things like staying calm under pressure. I think that kind of thing has. I'm very, very grateful for this lifestyle because, oh, things break. It just creates such resilience
Hmm.
in you, because yeah, this is just not for the faint of heart.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's fair to say, I mean, I say it. I don't know if you do or not. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I tell people all the time, like, I'm not out here telling people they should live this life, right? If
Oh
if
yeah.
this appeals to you, I'm happy to answer questions or share my experiences. It's not for everybody, but this is what I feel like I need to do for me now. I'm very clear on it. So it sounds like you're very clear and you are very willing to have chosen the trade-offs, which in a way really aren't trade-offs, right? Your
Mhm.
furnace is on wheels, other people's furnaces are in the building or on the foundation of their homes, right? Your decisions that you have to make every day are the same decisions that anybody who is in a stationary set of four walls makes, just a little bit of different context, right?
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Alexandra, question 3 is what have you learned about yourself as a result of sitting on this comma?
Oh my gosh. I think the main thing is that we as humans are just capable of so much more than we give ourselves credit for.
Mm,
And I think we really, as I said, pigeonhole ourselves because of what we think is traditional, what we think is right. And, we might not be living the life that we want to be living because, we say we can't do that, we can't financially do that, we can't physically do that. But man, when you're forced into these situations, as we were talking about, I have done things that I never in a million years thought that I was capable of. And
Mm.
even as a result of this, like I grew up and I was like, "Oh, I'm not going to be like a gym person. I'm not going to do that." But last last year, I think I hiked like 85 miles in 1 month. And I did it
Wow.
all by myself. And I was like up at 2 a.m. Yeah, I hiked rim to rim by myself. I did Angel's Landing. I did like the most dangerous hikes in America. And I
Wow.
did it all by myself, all in one day with no backpacking. Never.
Mm.
Like if you told me that I would be doing that at, in middle school when I was like struggling to run a mile, I would have laughed in your face. But
Mm.
yeah, we're just physically, emotionally, spiritually, everything. We're just capable of so much more.
And so what you're saying is in doing all of that, what you took from that is just the proof of capability, the proof of what you can do.
Yeah, as I said, I
A-
didn't even think this life was possible. Like, I didn't
yeah.
even give myself permission to think that this life was possible. And here I am living it. So, yeah, just anything's possible.
What does the extreme give you? Like you've been very open about that. Like I do everything to extremes, especially the zesty side, the adventurous side, those kinds of things. What do you gain from that beyond or in addition to what you just shared?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of realizing that the extreme is where I live. Like that's where I feel alive.
Mm.
And I'm finally accepting that and being like, you know what? This is who I am. And I'm just going to live life to the extreme. And the more I push myself, the more I learn about myself, and the more I'm happy that I got off that comma.
Mm. Okay. So that's really kind of a good segue into the next question, which is what has changed for you or what is changing for you as a result of sitting on that comma?
Yeah, I think it's just really just like having the confidence to go out there. I was also like quite insecure when I was in med school. I had a lot of doubts about myself. And, even though I was achieving these great things, I still was like, well, there's something better. I just had that mindset. And we didn't talk about this yet, but a part of like what I do in this RV is I go take pictures and I teach people how to take pictures, and I do it all as a mermaid.
Mm. Okay.
So this was like something from my childhood. We can definitely talk about it if you want to, but
Yeah, go into it.
there's I was like, oh, I don't like social media. I don't like putting myself out there. I don't like being heard, essentially. And I chose something that really brought me out of my comfort zone because let's be honest, if you see a mermaid out there at a wild, all eyes are going to be on me.
Hmm.
Some bad, some good. And so I think by getting off that comma, I've really forced myself to just get over all these fears and these doubts that I was having. And of course they
Hmm.
still come up. I'm still human. I'm still like, "Oh my gosh, don't look at me as I put on my tail." Like or as
Yeah.
I'm like out here with my big ass RV. But I think getting off that comma and really just choosing to jump into that extreme has been very, very rewarding in that
Mm.
aspect.
Well, what I believe I'm hearing you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is on the one hand, it's in keeping with your theme, right? Which is going all in on everything and going to extremes on everything. But a lot of the things you described in the past, I believe, were sort of like personal. They were personal and solo, and it was just you. This one, you're keeping with your theme. I go extreme, and if I'm insecure about being seen in public and being visible, then I may as well go all in on that too. But this time you went public. Mm.
Yeah, because I think I kind of made myself that promise when I quit med school. Because I was like, okay, if you quit this amazing thing that you've worked so hard for and you've studied for and you've taken test after test after test for, you better go all in. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
better make it work because there's no other option. So that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of how I went into it, is I was like, if you're gonna live and truly live, you better go live.
Okay.
And nothing's gonna hold you back.
Yeah. So then what's changed for you is you've allowed yourself to become more public. You went all in on it and you said, let's just go a little crazy too. But yet you're still honoring some of the fond memories from your past.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So the mermaid thing, my parents got married underwater.
Mm.
And our house was always beach themed, and I knew, as I said, I was setting up realistic goals with this, where I was like, okay, if
Hmm.
I do enter this online chaotic space, I need to stand out a little bit. And that the mermaid just felt like the most authentic thing for me.
Okay.
So as I said, I was pushing myself a little bit because I was like, okay, we're gonna not hide behind what you think people want you to be, and we're just gonna be you. And the mermaid
Hmm.
felt like a, the best way to achieve that.
Yeah. Well, you talked about your parents getting married underwater, and the first thing that came up for me is like, oh, the apples don't fall far from the tree, do they?
Yeah, no, they really don't.
That's awesome. Are there any other things, because we're getting towards the end of our five questions, is there anything else that you would want to share that has changed for you as a result of sitting on the comma? You shared about being public and going all in and adopting the mermaid persona for your socials. Anything else that's changed for you?
I think it's just really taught me that everybody has purpose and everybody has a unique perspective.
Mm,
Because as I said, I was kind of blending in,
hmm
I was going down the mainstream road. I was, doing all that, but I think that it's taught me that everybody's so unique and everybody just has their own little thing that they can bring to the world, and I think that's so beautiful. And I just hope that people live the lives that they want to. And they're just brave and
mm,
adventurous.
Okay. So let me jump into the fifth question and then we'll start to wind down. So, Alexandra, what does getting off the comma look like for you?
I think getting off the comma is the difference between, like having a path laid out for you versus creating your own path.
Mm.
Like when I was quitting, okay, when I tell you the school is hard, the school was hard. So much that
Mm.
you had your own therapist at the
Oh,
school.
wow.
They just needed to make sure that everybody was okay. And when I was talking to my therapist, she was like, "Oh, I feel like you're at a crossroads where one side is like this very clean, manicured trail, that you can go down, you can see the end of it. It's great, it's fun, it's stable. And then the other way, like someone just hands you a machete and just says, start chopping."
Mm-hmm.
And, she was like, both are equally amazing, you know,
Mm.
but you need to choose which one you're going to do. So
Yeah.
I think that really put it in perspective for me. So I think getting off the comma for me would be just like I'm very proud of myself for having the courage for picking up that machete.
Hmm. That's amazing. That's awesome. Um, okay. Well, I know you and I could talk so much more, and we are going to. Obviously, I'm going to keep you on after we stop recording so we can chat some more. But for people who want to hear more, for people who want to connect with you, for people who are really resonating with your story, and maybe want to see what you're up to, I'll put all of the links in the show notes. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm basically everywhere. I'm called the Bucket List Mermaid. And I'm on that on all socials, or you could just Google me.
Okay.
Most like the biggest adventure cheerleader. So if there's anybody out there who like needs questions or is like, oh my gosh, I like went on my first hike today, like I will 100% hype you up.
Okay, nice. So that's an invitation then to the audience, right? Reach out and if you just need a little moral support or a little shove or a little boost, right?
Because
Then they
it's
can reach
hard.
out to you. Yeah, it is. Absolutely. Alexandra, one of the things that we do here is a segment I call acknowledgments. And that is because obviously you being here, telling your story, this whole podcast is about lifting up people's voices and letting people's stories be heard. So your story wouldn't be complete if I didn't give you an opportunity to acknowledge others. And that's your opportunity to boost or give a voice to or lift up others who matter to you. That could be organizations, causes, other creators, or just people in your life who are important to you. So, who would you like to acknowledge today? And if it's relevant and you want us to, we'll include that in the show notes.
Yeah, yeah, no, I love this question because we're all about connection. And I honestly do not think that this would have been possible without my parents or my family.
Hmm.
I mean, because, if you're a parent or anyone's a parent out there and their kid's like, oh, I'm going to quit med school and move it to an RV, that's probably pretty heart pounding for most
Mm.
parents and families. But there was never a moment where their confidence faltered. I mean, they were just consistently like, absolutely love this for you, like, let's go. And even to this day, they're just so supportive of just me and my work and everything that I do, that I just could not do this journey without them. And I'm just so beyond grateful for everything that they have done and every way that they've supported me and my business and my lifestyle.
Well, and I could tell just even in your story how important your family was to you or is to you, and describing your parents in particular. So, Alexandra would love to continue, but all podcasts must come to an end. So, I am just very grateful to you for showing up today and sharing your story with us, and definitely look forward to following your journey and chatting more as well. So, have a wonderful week ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Absolutely. What an honor it is for me to hear and share these powerful stories. I hope you feel the same way. Think about what you learned from this conversation. I encourage you to write it down in some form of journaling or reflection, because surprises can reveal themselves to you when you write your thoughts down. If you were moved by today's conversation, pass it along to someone you care about. And if you do discover something you'd like to unpack further, book a call with me and let's talk about it. My links are in the show notes. Be sure to like this episode and follow the podcast here on this platform and all social media at Off the Comma. Feel free to interact and comment. Thank you for listening to this episode of Off the Comma. As always, keep noticing and keep listening.